Get ready to brawl. Pitt fans and West Virginia fans can already get excited about the rebirth of the Backyard Brawl. It's months and months away, but we now have an official announcement that Pitt and West Virginia will give new life to the Backyard Brawl and start their seasons a throwback of sorts, not just the game, not just the rivalry, but a Thursday night affair. I'm excited about that. That's awesome news here. We're going to talk about that and so much more here on Mic'd Up, here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, WV Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. I'm Mike Asti. That's Mike Vukovcan. And yeah, Mike, to get things started, that's great news to me because the other option was, and it's great to have this rivalry back, but the other option is to have this game thrown into a Saturday afternoon in the midst of a holiday weekend. Who knows what kind of season West Virginia is going to have. Pitt obviously coming off a great season, but there's other big games. That game was going to get overshadowed. Now this game potentially can get highlighted, and the entire country potentially is able to get more interested in this game outside of just Pitt and West Virginia fans. It's great to have the rivalry back. It was one thing you have to give credit to both schools that once they were in different conferences, you had conference realignment, and who knows where West Virginia's future may lie. Both schools did show an interest in having this rivalry exist. That's not always been the case with rivals of Pitt, and that's not even always been the case with rivals of West Virginia. We saw Pitt able to get that rivalry with Penn State back briefly, and West Virginia has played Virginia Tech in recent years, including last year, and even Maryland, whatever you think, if that rivalry exists or not, playing them as well. But this is it. This is the pinnacle for these two teams, starting off a year, have it on Thursday night. Is this not best case scenario for the rebirth of this rivalry?
Yeah, and I actually think we have. I don't know that this means. I hope it means, but the cynic in me tells me it won't. But I think we at least have two reasonable athletic departments that are willing to, put aside anything that's happened in the past or any sort of egos or anything else to do what's right. And these two teams playing every year is right. I know everything in college football is screwed up now. We could do a 1 year show and all that.
We could do a never ending show, and it's hard to fit games in the schedule, obviously. Right.
But these two teams should be playing, have to be playing. And, with hopefully West Virginia, Neil Brown building the program back up,
right?
And where Pitt is, these two aren't going to be afraid to play each other. If they're both good, a lot of times if one team is better than the other, maybe they're hesitant to play. But hopefully with both teams being on equal footing, this is just great. And what's even more so is what you touched upon, Mike, is opening the college football season. You know how jacked up people are just to get football here in general.
Right. Yeah.
The fact that they're going to open up the Thursday night game and seeing Pitt and West Virginia on, it'll be on ESPN, no doubt.
I'm surprised, and maybe you honestly have to give partial credit to Pitt's ACC title season that they wanted to get them on. They felt like it's an exciting program, and then West Virginia is enough of a rival to play.
I actually, to be honest with you, I heard you might be right, and maybe it does have, maybe that
I don't know.
Maybe that sealed the deal. But I actually heard this a few months ago. Somebody
there was rumors,
and I was trying to get it confirmed over with a few people over at Pitt.
Yeah, I didn't believe it, honestly, because I saw tweets from random people. I had nothing to corroborate anything.
Exactly. That's where and I saw it on, some message boards which I tried.
Right. And you're like,
but nobody over Pitt would confirm. So I figured, maybe it's maybe not true. But great news. Heinz Field should be rocking. It's just, you couldn't ask for a better way to start. And as far as Pitt goes, you couldn't ask for a better start to a season coming off of what they're coming off of last year. The momentum this season will be just continue into the 2022 season.
Yeah, I don't think you could ask for a better game for either program to start off their year. And you could argue that like has been argued by Penn State fans, for example, that, oh, the reason why we don't want to do that rivalry all the time, that if Pitt beats Penn State, it's a bigger deal. And that's not the case right now with where these programs are, but just historically, and if Penn State wins, doesn't do much. You could argue that depending on what season West Virginia has and what they're coming off of the last couple of years, that Pitt maybe is taking more of a risk here because they're not going to necessarily move in rankings by beating West Virginia unless West Virginia really turns around the season. You're not going to get a rebirth of WVU week 1 like maybe you would see in week 6 or 7, whereas West Virginia, a big win over Pitt somehow, certainly on the road, even though it's close by, could be a great way to start a year for WVU. So that exists as well. You have this at Heinz Field. You mentioned,
Yeah, but I think
Pitt fans. West Virginia fans are going to get there. You're going to have a lot of Mountaineer fans there.
I don't know. I think you'll have some, but I don't think you'll have as many as you think. But I hear what your point is about Pitt's risk. But I think at the end of the day, Pitt's to the point where they also need some credibility as far as that non-conference schedule. And I think this is a good risk. I think at the end of the year,
they're still favored. They're still favored. Yeah.
You know, I know they're favored, but
right.
You know, when a committee and all that looks at the end of the year, who you played,
right.
No matter what West Virginia is still West Virginia. You know, they're not going to be a 3 or 4 wins team. So it's going to be if Pitt wins that game, it's going to be a good win. No matter, you know, what West Virginia's record is at the end of the season, because it's not going to be bad.
No. Yeah. And I mean, I guess let's put you this way. If it's 3 or 4 win, we're having a whole different show at the end of that year, and it's going to be a whole different era of West Virginia football. So you would figure things are going to turn around a little bit more. You would figure competitive football for West Virginia. There is pressure on Neil Brown and West Virginia. Certainly that first few weeks of the season, Pitt is the only quality game. You got Kansas and Towson after that. So, yeah, regardless, it's great to have the rivalry back. It's great to have it at Heinz Field, honestly, for us to, you know, max out coverage with 2 outlets there and be there in full force. And it's great to have it on a national stage, on a primetime stage to start the year and not just dumping it, because we have seen, as we mentioned at the top of the show, when Pitt played Penn State, when West Virginia's played Tech, it's great to have the rivalries back for those schools, but those games weren't necessarily always thrown prime time, start a year, right. Number 1 highlight. You had another game that was bigger. You're throwing WVU Virginia Tech at 4 p.m. I mean, during the Vic era, I mean, that would never happen. So you're getting that now with these 2 schools, and they got to deliver with a good game. I think regardless of what team you want to win, which side you're on there, I think everyone does kind of want a good game in the rebirth of that here. Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here as we're talking Backyard Brawl. I'm already excited. It's cold outside, and we're already talking about the fall of next year. And to continue that, we don't know what's going to be going on with the West Virginia football program still. There's a lot of question marks there, a lot of pressure on that team. But over on the flip side for Pitt, we are starting to figure out maybe what that program is going to look like. A wide receivers coach being hired, Underwood coming over from Rutgers. Still some uncertainty there. You bring over a top flight quarterback though from USC. So Pitt should keep clicking, even though obviously you're losing a lot from last year, losing a Heisman candidate. There might be a little bit of a setback there. But what are your thoughts on Pitt's new coach that comes aboard? How does that affect the offense, and how does that affect the offensive coordinator position, and what else is still going on? It's not as much uncertainty as West Virginia, but there are some things to figure out for Pitt off of a really special season.
Pat Narduzzi, for all his faults, and I think he's starting to quiet some critics. One thing that he's shown that he has a capability of doing is hiring quality assistants. That is such an underrated. Oh yeah, such an underrated part of a program. When people talk about how much a coach is paid for a head coach, as big factor in that is what is their pull to hire assistant coaches? Because if you're not getting support from the university for surrounding yourself with good assistants,
look what Saban does. He brings in legit assistants, and he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and Pat Narduzzi has done a tremendous job. And I got to credit Pitt because I've heard some things where they've stepped up even this offseason on keeping assistant coaches. Teams have been poaching some of their assistant coaches, and the Pitt, the university has stepped up and give a couple guys pay raises to keep them. But bringing over the fact that he has been able, I think it shows you where the Pitt program is the fact that they were able to get a offensive coordinator from a Power 5 school to make a lateral move in Frank Signetti to come to Pitt. And the same thing with Taekwon Underwood, leaving Rutgers as a wide receivers coach to come over here to Pitt. I think that speaks of a commitment on Pitt as far as money, but also where the Pitt program is. Taekwon Underwood will be a home run for Pitt. I know we said that about Brendan Marion, and he's doing great things already at Texas as far as recruiting. Taekwon Underwood will do just as well here at Pitt as Marion would have done. He has all the same qualities. He's younger. He's 34 years old. One thing he has is the fact that, and I talked to a kid yesterday, their commitment for 2023 receiver, Zion Fowler, he talked about the fact that I'm going to be playing with a guy that played in the league. That's a quality
that's big. There's a great assistant coaches out there, but that is big in terms of credibility as an assistant. More than even a head coach, to have a guy that played is a bigger deal as an assistant, really.
Yeah, exactly. And this guy's an up and coming coach. I watched a YouTube tape Rutgers put out of, they had a mic on him throughout practice one day. Very energetic, a lot like Brendan Marion.
Yeah.
And he's a recruiter, which is everything in college football. And Pitt is going to do well in the states of New Jersey and Florida with Taekwon Underwood. Hats off. Great job once again for Narduzzi surrounding himself. His staff is so filled with assistant coaches that are not only good assistant coaches, but I think they have the capability one day of being head coaches down the line, which is what you want to do.
And you mentioned the pipeline. That's an underrated point. It opens up a little bit more of a pipeline than Pitt has previously with New Jersey, and then that weird Florida connection between people in New Jersey. They kind of figure out the rest of the map there in the middle doesn't count if you're in either of those places. But yeah, that opens up a lot of pipeline. Very young, seems universally loved the second that hire was announced. Even by rivals were saying, "Oh man, that's a great hire for Pitt." And the only negative of instant success and great success, especially as a head coach, you are going to lose assistants. You see what happened with Mark Whipple, but that was kind of known for a while. And then, of course, Brendan Marion going to Texas, that was a hit for a lot of Pitt fans. But this is almost a better version. And if there's continued success, maybe eventually you'll lose him. But hey, if he becomes a great head coach, that just shows how great your program is to build him to that level. And yeah, you're still going to have a great receiver there.
One thing I wanted to touch upon, Mike, real quick was Pitt's schedule for this season.
Sure.
We touched upon West Virginia real quick. I think it's really interesting the fact that 5 of their first 6 games are at home. You don't see that very often.
That is a bit odd. Yeah. Including
5 of 6 games at home. So they better take advantage of that. And just looking at
because that means the back end is the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. They have 4 of their last 6 on the road. So the key stretch of the season, no doubt, I think, is going to be October 22nd and 29th when they're at Louisville with Malik Cunningham, and then at North Carolina, a place they always struggle to play. That's going to be a key to the season right there. But my early prediction is that Pitt will my ridiculous. What do they say?
Yeah, ridiculously early prediction.
My ridiculously early 2022 football schedule prediction is I see Pitt winning 10 games again.
Okay.
I could see them very easily. Actually, if they're able to take care of Tennessee in week 2 at home, I think Pitt.
And they did last year, so that's nice to have. Yeah.
I think Pitt if they're able, that's going to be the toughest game of the group there. If they're able to do that, I think Pitt starts the season 6-0.
Okay.
So I think
And there's even an opportunity that if they somehow would drop the Brawl, because it is a rival, it is a very excited West Virginia program. Yeah. They had played close games last year, and you figure that it might actually even be better without Jared Deggy there. When the news of Jared Deggy being gone, there were some Pitt fans upset. Like, oh man, I would rather see Deggy. And he had his issues. He was a roller coaster ride there. So even if Pitt would lose that game, you have the Tennessee game to then recharge and get a quality win, and you have other games at home to kind of fix the schedule. So that doesn't have to ruin the year by any means in week one, no matter what happens there. It would put more pressure on the Tennessee game, though, dropping 2. But yeah, that would be it having quality games. It is a big deal in conference play. It's going to be tough for Clemson. You figure is going to be back and potentially a favorite.
And I think it's interesting what the ACC did. Normally, the last few years, they've ended Pitt's season by playing Syracuse.
Right, that's true.
Virginia at home. This year they end the season, which I think everyone's looking forward to. Right. That the Coastal is going to come down to Pitt and Miami, and they have the season ending Pitt at Miami on November 26th to end the season. I think the ACC is doing a little foreshadowing and thinking, okay, I think these are going to be our 2 best teams. We're going to get we could get some major exposure for our conference if everything plays out. And these are the 2 best or first and second place teams in the ACC Coastal. We could close the season with a winner take all for the division title.
Yeah, and even if Clemson's in there, obviously, because they were playing real well down the stretch, you figure they're going to be among the favorites as well. But Miami and Pitt should be there if Miami doesn't.
Yeah, I'm talking about Coastal though.
In terms of the Coastal, you're correct. Yeah, in terms of the Coastal for sure. But I mean, even overall in the whole conference. But I think one thing is, if you're a Pitt fan, the reason to be excited for this year, separate from what happened last year. Everything you're saying, what we're talking about here of having the Brawl as a primetime game, you're getting a rivalry back, then you're seeing a critical potentially game that you could have as a Coastal decider at the end of the year. That probably is going to be national TV. That's respect for what Pitt just did. This is a schedule of a team they think is going to be relevant. When they were having Syracuse end the year, I'm sure in the back room they're saying, well, Pitt might be okay, but they're not going to be winning a conference. If they think they can win a conference, they map the schedule this way. It's very likely because they decide primetime games and national TV during a year. Pitt could end up on national TV a lot that year, and certainly the back end of front and end of that season. That's where West Virginia wants to be, but that's how you map a schedule for a team you think is going to be relevant and just won a championship and just was in a major bowl game with or without Pickett. So the respect is there. It's now keep building on it. Don't make it an aberration and keep going. And there's no reason they shouldn't.
That's all part. You're 100% right, Mike. And that's all part of building Pitt had a good season.
Yeah. Build the program, not a season.
Exactly. They had a good season. Now it's about them. The teams like Clemson and Ohio State and, the other programs that you want to talk about, they do it year after year. And that's why, people complain about, they get all this, they get the attention because they win all the time.
Yeah.
If Pitt starts doing this 3-4 years in a row and starts playing in ACC championship games every year, they're going to start getting the primetime games. They're going to start getting favorable schedules, but they have to do it. Nobody's going to do it for them. So
no, but it's in front of them. Yeah,
this schedule sets up with the team they have coming back. There is no reason. Miami is the only, barring some injuries or things that happen prior to September, that there's no reason that Pitt or Miami don't win the Coastal this year. And I think Pitt, when it comes to media day and all that, for the first time, normally Pitt gets, they don't get voted in. I think this will be the first time that Pitt enters the season as the overwhelming favorite. They'll be picked by the media to win the Coastal.
Yeah, because they should get that, and obviously Wake will be involved in what the conference does with Hartman coming back. But yeah, they should. And honestly, and this might sound weird to say, who do you have more confidence in as a program, Pitt or Miami, in terms of those teams you're mentioning? Miami has disappointed with a lot of hype for years now. Yeah. It's not like Pitt's terrified of Miami. This isn't 20 years ago.
No,
I mean, they
and
might have, they're going to get talent there, and maybe they'll get it done finally. But who knows?
yeah, and this will. I think in time they will with Mario Cristobal there, but I
They
think
got
Miami,
to, yeah, right.
I think Miami is going to be a case this year, like a lot of these other programs, USC, where they got the splash with the new head coaches. I think the national media will give them instant
I'm sure
credibility, despite the fact that they are still who they are until this guy's able to get in recruiting classes. Miami's just all of a sudden not going to start winning.
No, yeah, and Pitt knows who Miami really is the last few years, despite who the hype might be there. Yeah. I'm sure Pitt right now thinks they're the favorite. Sure.
Yeah, this guy's going to help them win. There's no question about that. Right. But it's going to take a year or two. I don't think and same thing with USC. Well, who knows with USC, because
and the Pac-12 is kind of open, but
yeah, exactly. The Pac-12 is garbage, but same thing with Oklahoma.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're going to take a hit. They're going to take a hit. So, but speaking of hits, real quick to wrap things up here. This is in your wheelhouse. What's going on with Huggy Bear in West Virginia? We usually don't get into these type of conversations with him as far as long losing streaks. They don't usually happen in Morgantown. 6 straight last night, losing to Baylor. They're losing to good teams, but still they're losing. Is this season salvageable?
The season's salvageable because it is Bob Huggins. It is West Virginia. They do kind of go through stretches in January, and he usually does get the most out of a program. What I've noticed that's different is, and I don't know if you've noticed this too, after they lost 3 in a row, Huggins came out. We have a video on PSL, furious with the team, saying, if you don't want to play this way, get off this team. I don't care who you are. Basically calling out Taz Sherman again as a leader. Last night, and we also have video, he's saying, don't count us out. I love my kids. We're playing hard. He's changing his course. He's trying to be friendly and hug them and totally change his mentality. Obviously, even though you can argue, and you see West Virginia fans trying to say this to me all the time, no big deal. It's, as you mentioned, tough schedule. Number 8 in the country. They lost to Baylor twice in these 6 games. People are arguing. You see the first tweets. Big 12 might be the best conference in the country. Okay, but you got to win some games. Yeah. You can't just sit there and say this is a really tough conference. We're never going to win. And that's just going to be the case. This team only has 13 wins now, figuring they got to get to at least 18, I'm imagining. It's still a tough schedule coming up. I don't think the season's done. The sky's not falling, but they got to turn things around. Taz Sherman played better. My biggest problem, Mike, they played a lot of ranked teams in that schedule, Kansas, Baylor, etc., Tech. They lost to Oklahoma and Arkansas. Oklahoma at home. Oklahoma's the same team as them with a worse record, and that was at home. If West Virginia won those games, it's not as big of a deal about the losing streak because obviously you upset it in the middle and you at least got a couple wins. You're at 15 wins now, certainly at least if you're at 14. By losing those games and not really playing well in those games, it compounds these losses here against good teams. So they went from being a team that was mad they weren't ranked after a Connecticut win to now they're not even guaranteed an NCAA tournament berth unless they turn this around. So there's pressure there. The schedule doesn't get easier. You have Tech again coming up on Saturday, so they're familiar with these opponents. But as you said, it is rare for Huggins to know teams well, be familiar, play them twice in a month, and lose multiple times, even though Baylor's a defending champ who can go to a Final Four again. So you're figuring that one of these teams is going to get West Virginia to just unleash themselves. They played well in the first half. It didn't continue. Sherman played well. They need more scoring around him, but they got to freaking win a game. I don't care who they're playing. They just have to win a freaking game coming up. They're desperate for W. But that'll do it for this edition of the show here. Obviously, we got a lot going on until we get to the Backyard Brawl, but already excited about what's going on around the Pitt and West Virginia program there, and certainly the Backyard Brawl coming up. So prime. Yeah,
we should alert our viewers out there that stay tuned all week. Alan and Nick,
Senior Bowl.
They're in Mobile. The coverage really ramped today. I think Alan is on board now as far as in the area.
A lot of travel. Yes.
Nick was there yesterday for all the measurements and stuff. You and I will talk about that later on in the week as far as some people talking about Kenny Pickett's hands and all that silliness. But, we'll get to that later this week. But I'm sure Alan and those guys and then Nick will have plenty of content on PSN and PSL.
Yeah, and of course Steelers now as well, because Kenny Pickett has been rumored if he'll be able to be a Steelers quarterback and where he'll fall. Maybe he'll fall enough because of the hands they actually can pick him at 20. We will see. So all of that, of course, coming up here for the rest of the week. And as you did mention, the Senior Bowl, a big deal as well. And even grab yourself a cold one there. If it's cold inside your house, turn on that fireplace. Get ready for the Backyard Brawl. You can break out in your tailgate the Pittsburgh Sports Now Ale. I'm excited. I got to get myself a case of that there. You can see a picture there on Mike's Twitter as well. That'll do it for this edition of the show. A lot